Welcome back to another Practice Underwater Friday. We are coming off a big high of our webinar last night. We're taping it's the morning after. George has been up since 4 a.m. his time.
You got to
Still
air
on the
that out,
high.
Matt. You got to air that out.
Of course. I got a text at 7 a.m. my time saying, I can't go back to sleep. Do you want to record now?
Well, I mean, look, I don't know, for whatever reason, it just sleeping wasn't happening last night. So I thought we might as well record for Practice Underwater. Here we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. And you crushed it, man. So today we have another. I keep getting these startups. They're finding us. Maybe I'm like the startup guy. What do you think?
Yeah, the bandana startup guy, what was it that you said with Katie? What was that line? Oh man, that cracked me up.
Something about branding or
Yeah,
something?
what's your branding? I don't know. What's that office? Like, isn't that like a startup thing, Mr. Bandana branding?
Yeah. I'm starting to really enjoy them. I'm really seeing. I'm turning around. I think you clouded my judgment of startups, but I'm starting to get into them.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm so happy that these are not on my docket. I'm not a startup guy. And guys, this is a 5-op startup. So
Yeah.
I'll have thoughts on that.
Yeah. Okay. We'll keep this short, and then we'll see everyone in the outro. Let's kick it to the interview with Dane.
Okay, welcome back to Practice Underwater. We have anonymous guest with us today. He's going to go by Dane. Dane, how are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So you have a bit of a unique story. So talk us through, what you got going on there.
So I am a co-owner of a startup practice. We opened like the very beginning of February and felt like we were doing really well. And then of course COVID happened. And so we had to break and put everything to a halt. And now that we're back up running, we're having what I think is good growth. But then there's not a lot of like industry information to know whether this is good growth or not. Also, as we feel like we're riding a good wave, we don't want to miss the wave. We want to keep running it and having have more good patients and all that sort of stuff. So we kind of are looking for advice on, hey, where do we go? What sorts of things are we missing? And how do we really maximize our potential?
Sure. So that's interesting. So it's a co-owned startup. How did
Yes.
you come to that decision?
So I have a very good friend that is a dentist. We were living in different cities in the U.S., but I always wanted to go back to the city that we kind of grew up in. And timing just worked out that I was like, hey, it's time for both of us to do this. I think both of us wanted to be practice owners, but we didn't want to do it ourselves. We thought it was just a little too daunting. We also really wanted a balanced lifestyle. So in the way that we set up our schedule or our master plan, we'll both be working like 4 days total, but just half days. So you go in at like 7 and you're done at 2, and the other person comes in at like 1 and is done at 7. So you have a really flexible lifestyle while still maintaining a good income and getting to do what we practiced so long doing.
Yeah, I hear that. So talk to me. So you set it up a little uniquely, at least as like the final version of this practice.
Yeah.
It's 5-operatories, and you set it up for immediately, like the end goal would be split shifting. So talk to me through that decision.
Yeah, so I had worked at a corporate office, and they had a lot of different offices, and some were like 12 doctor, some were 2 doctor, but in all of the practices, they had kind of a split schedule. And I realized that, hey, that's really beneficial for the patients, and that's actually really beneficial for my lifestyle. I had actually worked at a different office that was 9 to 5, and I hated it. You sit in traffic, you waste an hour for lunch, all this stuff that just wasn't compatible with me. And so we both knew our end goal was like, hey, let's have that type of a practice. And we, of course, looked for a practice that was, I don't know, like a $1.2 million practice that we could kind of retrofit into our vision. And in the area that we're in, it's growing really rapidly, and all the practices were just really expensive for what they were, and didn't really fit our vision. So we kind of were forced to go the startup route. That wasn't our original intent.
How long did you guys look for practices to buy?
Probably like a year.
Did the whole on market, off market, kind of exhausted all resources?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was difficult because neither of us lived in the city that we're in now. And so we sent out mailers like shared practices talks about. We like cold called people, and then we went through brokers here, but basically brokers had no time for us. They're like, we're not gonna deal with you guys. You don't live here. Yeah, it was really weird.
Do they know people can
Off-putting.
move to different areas? Like that's like a thing people do sometimes?
I feel like the market is so competitive here. They're like, I'm not going to waste my time on you. I've got 5 other people that are willing to pay more than this practice is worth. So no, we're not doing
Okay,
that.
interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so talk to me about the space that you guys opened.
So we were in town looking at a practice, and we were just like, God, this is not going anywhere. And we had another friend in town that had started a startup, and so he gave us the number of his, I don't know, like medical real estate broker. And so we called that person, and he was like, yeah, actually, I've got a couple areas in mind for you. So why don't you drive around and look at a couple of these places? So we drove around and looked at a couple of those places, saw one that we liked. And then I think we had to fly out of town that day, flew back into town a different day, looked at this area. It was a little smaller than we wanted, but it had really good street visibility, like a really high traffic street. And they actually gave us billboards on both sides of the building. So we were like, okay, let's make this work. And then with the thought process of, hey, we're probably not going to be there at the same time together, we can have a small footprint and have like 5 ops, but effectively it's a 10 op practice the way we split our schedule.
I'm going to push you on that one. So is there space to expand in this current building?
You know what? Not really. There's a company next door that I'm not sure will be there in a couple of years or after this COVID mess ends up. So technically, like, yeah, there's other spaces in the building. It wouldn't be easy.
Mm-hmm. So that like share a wall, or is that a separate structure?
It shares a wall, but I think that there's like a fire staircase between there. So it would be a little disjointed. You could totally do it. You could probably have like some doctor ops over in that space. You could probably have 3-4 ops. Yeah, you could probably do it. Frankly, that was like not on our radar. We were just trying to find a place to have a practice for either of us, not really thinking about like, hey, where do we grow? And we distinctly wanted to be in this area, and we knew that there were some sacrifices to be made for that.
Yeah, and that has paid off, and we'll get into some of your new patient flow numbers that have shown that it was a growing area, a good place for a startup. So definitely area seems like a wise choice. But it's comforting to hear that you at least have some kind of out, if and when you outgrow the space.
Yeah.
So talk to me a bit. You sent me in the email about like how you calculated kind of like your max revenue based on this space. So I think it'd be useful for listeners to hear that.
Okay. I don't remember the specific numbers I shot you in the email, but there was a shared practice episode that talked about mass capacity. And I think it might have even been Dental Intel. And they were saying like, hey, you can kind of multiply the hours that you work times the chairs that you have by this constant, which I think was like 75,000. And it gives you a number. And then they had another way of doing it. And I can't remember how that was, but you like figure out how many chairs you have, how many days you're working, and basically like a per hour number. And I think that capacity maxes out at like 2.4. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, you said 2.6, but same ballpark.
2.6, which like that's pretty good number if you get to that.
But you see how if you had say 8 to 10 ops, that number is far
obviously
increased.
Yes, obviously that was like well beyond any of our ideas.
Yeah, I mean we're kind of really realizing, and obviously SharePractice is not super big currently in the startup space, but we're realizing the big importance of setting up for a much bigger practice, a much more number of ops with a startup.
Yeah,
because you're kind of that's now giving you a solid benefit of doing a startup versus an acquisition. That even though you come in with no patients, you have the capacity to get to a large practice if you grow into it.
And I think that's absolutely what would be ideal. I mean, we're in like the downtown of a city. As a startup, you can't afford that sort of space.
Right.
That's just not a luxury. But you're also in a city, and so it's like, you hear people saying, "Yeah, I've got to move my clinic 2 miles," and it's like, well, no, there's 5 other buildings right by us. We could move our building next door if something opened up. So there's difficulty right now, but who knows, something could pop up.
Yeah, good. As long as you kind of have that, like, okay, there is another option if we get to that point.
But realistically, like a $2.6 million practice was well over anything we ever imagined. So I think that maybe we're looking a little too small.
Yeah, and I think even in your current space, that's a little low for what I think you guys are capable of, especially with a fully maxed out split shifting. And you mentioned in your email that you both do a good amount of specialty procedures. You want to be kind of that one-stop shop office that
Absolutely.
I think you can push three plus on that.
That would be amazing.
Talk to me about the split shifting thing, because like for me, working a half day is just as inconvenient as working a full day. But you seem to really enjoy it. So talk to me why that's attractive for you.
Well, I don't want everybody to steal my idea because I think it's awesome for patients. But also, I mean, like, so you get up at like, I roll out of bed at like 6 o'clock, and I'm at the office at 6:30. We start seeing patients at 7, and we go until 2. In a regular office, you probably sat in traffic. If you live in a city, you sat in traffic. You left at like 7:38. You get there, you see your first patient at 9. You really go until 12, and then you stop and you take lunch, and then you've got like another 4 hours afterward, and it's just ridiculously inefficient. And so the way we do, it sucks to get up that early, but patients love that 7 a.m. appointment. You go nonstop, you go hard, and then you're done at 2, and it's like, wow, now I get to go to the gym. I can go to the grocery store. Oh, I have a doctor's appointment that I need to go to. And so it's actually super, super convenient for me.
Okay, I see it. Yeah, and that's a really big thing with startups is those extended hours from the start. Like that is an immediate draw. Like you have the morning you mentioned, and then you also have nighttime hours till 7 on most days, right?
And what I didn't mention is that I work Mondays. My partner works Tuesdays. Initially, neither of us worked Wednesdays. We both had associate jobs. And then we would alternate Thursdays and Fridays. Well, on Monday, one week I would work the morning shift. The next week I would work the evening shift. Same with my partner on Tuesdays. And then we would switch on Thursdays. And so on our door, it says that we're open to 7 to 7. And effectively we are. If you call and say, hey, I need an appointment at 7, we say, okay, then the next appointment for an evening appointment is 2 weeks away. And they don't know that we weren't really open all that time, but effectively for them, we are.
You are, yeah. And are you and your partner both still employed as an associate elsewhere?
I am. She just ended her associate job. And then we are both like very anxious to be in there full time. And that's another question that we would love some benchmarks with, just because there's so much instability with COVID. I don't want to really quit my job and then later be like, wow, that was a stupid decision.
Well, I mean, you said in your email that you're in a good position as far as both of you have spouses, both of who have, good careers with benefits.
Correct.
That maybe, your income needs aren't so high where you may be able to afford it. So like what do you need to be making from this practice? Like when is the decision made? Like what factors come into play?
So we I think that we've done a good job planning, but our plan was always like, hey, how much money are you making at your associate job right now? And so our take home from the associate jobs of 2 days a week was about like $5,000 a month. And so then we kind of calculate out, which also we hadn't paid ourselves with the startup for a long time. Like we've just been accumulating money to sit on and use for advertising. But so then we figured out, hey, if we take a percentage of our production and then keep taxes, like how much do we need to produce to make $5,000 and take that home? And we're well beyond that both individually. And so it's like, financially we could do that. But then you also have to think, because of our split shift, if I start adding hours, really we need to hire a new front desk and we need to hire a new assistant, because right now we have one team that's like full time and then the doctors are split half time, right? And in the area, help is hard to find and it's very expensive.
Okay, so what is your team currently?
we have a front desk, we have one full-time assistant, and then we've been using float assistants and trying to get them to stay on. But they have found that when you temp, you get paid a lot of money up front, and they're forgetting that you've got to pay taxes on that at some point. And so,
right, because they get the check.
And they're like, "Man, I'm rich," and it's like, "No, you got to pay taxes still."
You got to report that.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think you missed one staff member area here.
Did I forget?
Like the whole other area of a dental practice,
like the dentist.
No, there's another one.
Front desk assistant. Oh yeah, the hygienist. We do all of our own. Yeah, we do all of our own hygiene right now. I don't want to do hygiene forever. It is super rewarding to be able to sit there with the patient and actually get to know them. And I think that connection is what drives such good reviews and what drives such good in-house referrals. Obviously, long-term, no, that's not part of the plan. We are looking for a hygienist right now. The thought was, let's do hygiene for 6 months, and then once recalls hit, we need to have a hygienist to be there to see new patients and hygiene patients.
Well, recalls have come and gone.
Yeah, they definitely are. They are. Yeah, recalls are happening.
I mean, you came to us. I'm going to push you on this one. Right?
No, that's fine.
You expected that. Okay.
No, I know that. I know that. We have a post up for a hygienist, and then we also have an interview on Thursday. I've never been in a situation where it's so hard to find staff.
That's weird. You would think like a downtown city maybe would be easier, more people available, but you're having the opposite experience.
Yeah, I think it's like the city that I'm in. It was not this difficult in the previous cities that either of us were in. I think that there's just a lot of growth. I don't think that there's like a big hygiene school here. I don't think there's a big assisting school here. So these things that I used to take for granted where I lived, that's not the case here.
Interesting. But the main point I want to push back on with this whole hygiene thing is, well, it's twofold. One, that great experience can happen just from the hygienist and then a shorter time with you. That still can be created.
We're like absolutely not scared of hiring a hygienist. It's for sure on the document.
So it's just a matter of when now.
Yeah, like it's supposed to be happening right now. We would love to have a hygienist.
Right.
And then also that takes the pressure off of right now we have 2 assistants, and that assistant's really important to do like the polishing, flossing, and education for the hygiene, because I can't be doing hygiene and also fillings and extractions and whatever else is going on.
Yeah, and you mentioned in your email that you've had a bit of like a stagnated growth as far as like collection wise. I think you're averaging out at what a month?
We were averaging out about like 80,000 production.
Mm-hmm.
And the collections keep tipping up, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was about 80,000. And so we've done that like the past 4 months. This month, it looks like it's going to be a little bit more, but also my partner added Wednesdays. So
are those gross production or is that adjusted?
Are you looking at the
Yeah, because I'm seeing like about 80 gross and then
it was gross, and then I was just looking at gross.
Okay, adjusted more like 50, like high 50s, almost 60. Which like that could be a lot of the reason why it's kind of reaching a point where it's kind of staying around the same, because a lot of your time you and your partner is spent doing cleanings.
Right. And that's kind of what I figured. Like, hey, are we plateaued because like we've maxed out with the number of new patients and hygiene that we can fit in, and that leaves like only so much time to do productive like dental procedures? So wondering if it's like a space thing, or is it because we don't have a hygienist? Those sorts of questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's a capacity issue because you don't have that hygienist. Would be my assertion. Just based on everything I know about the practice and looking at your numbers, that is one piece I think that's holding you back financially.
So I've got a question for you. Like a new patient probably can get in. I mean, we try same day, realistically, like always within 2 weeks. So when we say like, hey, it's a capacity issue, and I'm looking at my schedule, I'm like, there are places to fit people in, and so I don't. Yeah, I think that I had misgivings, or like I couldn't really believe that it was capacity. So why do you feel so comfortable that it's capacity?
I mean, it's just a mere fact of that your time is spent on, 1 hour of your time is spent on, I don't know, a $200 recall visit when it could be spent on, 3 fillings netting you $700 while someone is doing that $200 recall. Like I don't believe you'll get this hygienist and she'll be fully booked
Yeah,
all
no,
every day, all day. But that also opens up the opportunity that new patients now can get in same week, maybe even same day, which is another draw. So I would strongly encourage, the hygienist you're looking for to be full time. I would
okay,
make that leap.
yeah,
Um,
that was the plan to do full time. Uh,
so would that look like, is it 7 to 7 Monday through Thursday would be full time? And there's a Friday too.
no, so full time would be like 7 to 1, and then the next day would be like 12 to 7.
Mhm.
Wednesdays are 7 to 1. Thursdays
Okay,
it would
so
alternate.
it's always one of those, one or
Yep,
the other.
and so they have to be pretty flexible. I suppose like if both of us were in the office and the hygienist said like, no, I want a fixed schedule, it'd be fine, and then like the doctors would alternate when the hygienist is there. But yeah, I think that you're right with full time. That's what we had planned on.
Okay, so it'd be Monday through Friday with like that's 7 to 2, 7 to 1 or whatever.
Yeah, like an alternating schedule if they were fine with that. For
Okay.
sure, evenings. Well, actually, I shouldn't say for sure. I feel like evenings are more productive. I haven't actually gone into like the utilization
hmm
on practice by numbers to see if evenings are actually like most utilized.
Yeah, I mean that's most of my experience and from clients I have that evenings are a bigger draw than mornings. But
Mm-hmm.
how have you felt just like being there several months?
Um, I think that evenings for sure are really productive. Like between 5 and 7 are really productive. I think if we did like 5 to 8, even it'd be really productive.
Mhm.
People do really like the 7 a.m. appointments, but also now that a lot of people are working from home, they have a little bit more flexibility. So the day is more utilized than I had anticipated.
Yeah, I mean, I really like this hour setup for a startup. I think this is really smart. Like, because you're not committing to that 7 to 7, you're alternating, so you have both, but you can list both hours. Like, this is a really smart setup. And I think if it was one doctor, if it was just you, you'd be really doing like you would see it financially too. It's just tougher because it's like it's two doctors. It's a slower build to get both of you full.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like when I look at those numbers, I'm like, for a startup that, I mean, we've been open how many months? Like 8 months with a little
But
recess in there.
yeah,
Like,
for
I
real.
feel like these numbers are really good, but again, I don't have anything to compare to.
No, I would say they are really good. And I want to talk about one area you've been really good in marketing. So, like, what was your marketing strategy pre-open and then since then?
Our marketing strategy was we're not going to pay ourselves and we're going to throw all of our money to Google. No, really, I think we have a marketing company that I'm not sure is doing a great job because I'm just not knowledgeable in that area. But we do their SEO. I think our website's nice. We do a lot of Google pay-per-click ads, and we're specific into like family general dentistry, also emergency, because I think that's a great way to get people in the doors. Plus, I like emergency things. And then we just started trying to do like kid slash pediatric, because I think that they're a fun age group to take care of. And also, if you get a whole family in there, it's like it's one person versus 5 people. You're just like multiplying the potential. So definitely, we've been trying to do that. We also really push Google reviews. We use Swell, and so we're not shy about asking people to help us to get the word out there, and that we would love to take care of their friends and family. We also do an internal like gift card for referrals, which I think is a big ROI. I mean, I think we give away $30, something like that, versus I just saw our cost to get a click on Google is like 60 or something like that.
hmm So $30 that's presented by you and given in like a bag that they leave with, Like
When somebody comes in and says like, "Oh, I was referred by so and so," we send a thank you letter with a gift card.
But they know that like it's in some signage at the office that if they
it's in signage at the front desk, and we'll also try to mention it to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, without being pushy, but trying to be like, like if you had a good experience, we would love to have the same experience for friends and family.
Yeah, totally reasonable. Not pushy at all. And like, I'm confused. You're saying this market company, you don't know if they're doing a great job, yet you're getting 60 to 70 new patients a month. Like, what? I don't know. What barometer are you using here?
So I think it's that I do not know if that's location based or because of Google reviews. I think that's what I say. Hey, I don't know what's working, what's not, because it's really hard to, say it's this thing or that thing. Like, obviously it's a combination of all those things, but what are the knobs that we need to turn up to increase it?
Well, you guys are doing a good job of tracking where these leads are coming from. Like in your PBN snapshot, they say where, which bucket they're coming from, and you guys have PBN, so you obviously know this as well. So like I'm looking at September, you had 22 from Google, 15 from location, 13 internal, a couple smatterings of other Yelp, Mailer. So you're tracking this.
I haven't looked at that, so I should pay more attention.
Yes. No, I mean, whoever's at the front is doing a great job of populating those things.
Yeah, our front desk is a rock star.
Yeah, I mean, she has your AR in check. She has all these things. Hygiene pre-appointment is right where it should be. So you are tracking this well, and it seems like, I mean, your biggest source is Google. Probably due from your reviews, or a little bit from SEO. So I don't know. I would venture to argue that your marketing company is doing a very adequate job.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, like, what were your goals as far as like a new patient flow that you wanted or needed to see?
I think that we ran numbers. Like, I had this big spreadsheet of like, if we saw this many patients, this is what we would be doing. But realistically, I mean, you just don't know. It's like you're starting from scratch. We were happy with 30 the first month, and we thought that was amazing. And then when it bumped to 60, and I think like this month we've had like 50 some, I think. And so, I mean, we're thrilled. The sky is the limit. If we were getting like 100 people, that'd be fantastic. I'd quit my job in a second. And I definitely feel like we're somewhere in that range.
Let's get into that quitting job thing. So what barometers are you using for when you leave this job?
So really, I was using the barometer of, can I take home the same amount of money that I was making at the associate job?
Right. We got there.
And I'm there. I think the thing that's making me most nervous is COVID and the election and the same instability that everybody is kind of feeling.
Who's everybody? Who are we talking about here?
I don't know. The people around me, the people that surround myself with.
Maybe you need to have new people surrounding yourself with.
I can't. I mean, I'm in quarantine. I can't. There's nobody to surround myself with.
I don't want to do a COVID rant, although I could. But I don't know. That I don't buy it. I need something stronger than that.
Okay, and then I think it's just like, I think that I'm a type A person, and I like to have like these very nice markers of like, okay, this is set, now we can do this. Which is funny because a lot of what we've done has not been that way. And then I think for sure I'm concerned because like at my associate job, it's definitely been slow. It's not slow at our practice. And then the reason my partner left her associate job was because it was slow and they couldn't keep her busy one of those days. And so I think that I'm nervous that, things are going so well for us and they're not quite as well for like a few of the practices that we've seen. And we just don't want to like trip and stumble versus staying in this kind of secure spot for like 3 more months. Is that really going to hurt me? No, it's not really going to hurt me.
Yeah, but that's their praxis problem. Like
you're
not having that issue.
That's
right?
true. Like
by all standards, I'd say you guys are doing very well in growing this. And like you mentioned in your email that there are system level things or duties that either you haven't figured out, or I don't know if you don't feel like you have the time for. Like, in any way, is your other job holding you back on the growth of this practice?
Absolutely. Like if I was at my practice full time, all those things would get done. Uh, yeah, there's not enough time in the day, or I'm tired. Like today's my day off, and there's like a list of 10 things I could go into the office and do, but there's probably always a list of 10 things that I could go and do. If I didn't have my associate job, for sure, I would check things off that list a little faster.
Okay. So would you like to make a commitment of when this will happen?
Yes, give me some timeline. Give me
You
some
got to give it to
indicator.
me, man. This is your decision. Like, when, I don't know. When would you be like, I want to leave it by this point?
So my contract, I have to give a 90-day notice. Realistically, I was thinking that the start of the year would be time to be at the practice full time, and I think both me and my partner, that was our initial plan. And so we're still pretty close to that. I mean, I could totally give notice right now, and that still allows me productive months of like November and December and that other practice. Um, yeah, I could. I mean, like realistically, I could do it right now. My
So
toes are on
when
the
so
edge.
when will you give notice then?
After I chat with my spouse, I can give it
Of
next
course.
week.
Okay. So after spouse. Do you want me to follow up with you on that?
Sure.
Okay. So I'll send you an email by the end of next week. Well, that's exciting. I mean, you and her there full time, like then the sky really is the limit because now you're all in, right? And
Yeah.
like you've set it up perfectly where you've split the hours and you don't you're not really needing this money that your family's gonna suffer if you leave this job. Like it's a very safe move, in my opinion. Um, so I'm all for
Okay. Thanks. I like that. It's nice to have some outside support, or like an
it.
outside view, I should say.
Yes. And I'd also encourage you both to pay yourself a little money. Like, I feel like startups do this a lot where they like get in this really big hoarding mode because they have this fear that it's gonna fall apart. Like if I don't have all this in the account, then like what if we go downwards
Yeah.
when every indication is you're going upwards? So give yourself a little money, even if it's just something.
We have finally started
Okay,
paying
good.
ourselves. And it's funny because like I think that we're hoarding it, thinking that we would like to spend it all on marketing. We just don't know where to spend it. And so like
Yeah,
I'll ask the marketing company like, hey, where should we spend more money? Um, and I think that they're probably used to dentists being like, no, I don't want to spend any more money. I don't want to spend any more money. And like literally we have like thousands of dollars that we budgeted the shit out of so that we could use this money to market and get us there faster. So that's another frustration I think with the marketing company, that I know it's like not one size fits all, but I feel like I've not gotten a lot of direction from them.
yeah, I like what you got into there, where I think you and your partner should sit down and create a marketing budget that you stick to for a month. So you can talk to your partner, find out what that number might be, and then go to the marketing company and say, hey, this is what we budgeted for marketing. Like, where do you see us using this money? Because what you listed now is not a huge marketing spend, right? It was 1,000 a month for SEO, website, 1,500 pay per click. And is that it? Am I forgetting anything? Are you doing any
No,
mailers or anything?
no, we're not doing mailers. We did mailers initially, so yeah, 1,000 SEO sounds right, and then 1,500 for PPC.
Yeah, so 2,500 for a somewhat newer startup is not high by any means.
No,
So yeah, I would come up with a number you guys feel comfortable with, and also a number you want to take home every month is like a baseline. Like, hey, like I want to make sure we get this level of money, and then yeah, see what they say and see what other buckets you think you can drop them in.
tell me. So I told you that pay per click. We do like family, general. We
Mhm.
do emergency, and we just added like last month, like kids. What other things do you think are good ways? Like, I mean, like obviously you can do implants, but we're in the city and like that's super expensive. I'm not sure it's a good bang for the buck. Um, Maybe like implants we could do. Yeah. What's your
Yeah, I mean,
advice?
you're right on with my thinking. Like, yeah, there is implants, there is Invisalign, but those two are probably much more expensive than the ones you're currently in. Um, just being more competitive in that area. So, no, I don't have any major things I would do differently there. I think it's pretty well allocated.
I'll ask the marketing company.
Yeah,
I
ask
should
them.
ask you too.
I know you saw my episode, Matt Sucks in Marketing. You know where I'm coming from.
I did. I feel like we're on the same page, so we can share notes.
No, the only thing I would consider would be another round of mailers if that worked well, and getting into Facebook ads. I would look at those two buckets and explore them. But I think your pay-per-click allocation makes a lot of sense.
Do you do your own Facebook ads, or do you recommend somebody to do your Facebook ads?
So Kashabi is sending me her template actually sometime this week. So I made like 5-second little videos that will attach to them. So I'm going to try to do them myself. So I guess I'll report back on the podcast somehow, or maybe I'll send you an email. But yeah, I'm going to try to do them myself. Not my MO. I don't like spending my time doing this stuff, but now that I've dropped to a day and a half, I actually have a little more time. So yeah, I'm going to give it a whirl. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, what else are you going to do with your time?
Yeah, I don't know. Shave some strokes off my golf game would be ideal, but that's like a marketing thing, right? It's not like you put in some time, you shave the strokes. Just like you don't put in money and you get this number of patients. So
yeah, makes sense.
All right. Well, where else do you feel like you and your partner are getting stuck or need support in areas?
So marketing for sure, making sure that like our growth is as much as it can be. And then I feel like our systems are pretty good. I think that I worked in a corporate office and learned a lot about really productive, efficient systems. Probably training staff to be able to do that has been a downside. So for example, our front desk has been fallen into some places where she like says, "Oh, night guards are covered 100%," and it's like, well, they're usually not covered 100%, so we probably shouldn't tell people that. And then they'll come back and they'll have been denied, and so it's like, well, okay, our night guard that we were anticipating this amount of money, we're actually collecting zero, and so trying to have the time to sit down with staff and say like, hey, this is actually probably a better way of doing it, and then finding goddamn staff so that we can hire these people and train them and grow. So I think that those are two of the biggest things. And then probably benchmarks. We already covered hygiene for when to hire, and then probably like assistants and front desks. Like I always hear George, and it sounds like he's got a ton of front desks. And any practice that I've been in probably has fewer front desks and more assistants. So what's your take on that?
So we have one full, we have 2 assistants. So I think your next hire, so you get the hygienist would be the next one. I think, assuming you do have 2 assistants there of an available, the front is obviously the logical next to have someone else in the front who'd be more of like that, could be more of like the insurance verifier, scheduler, you don't have any overdue recall right now because you've only just started your first recall cycle. So it'd be a lot of insurance work. Like what systems do you have currently for verifying insurance?
So we actually are in discussions right now because we know that all these 6-month recalls are coming around, and then come the new year, we'll have to like re-verify people's insurance before they come in. And so because it's hard to find people and it's expensive here, we've tried to outsource a lot of things. Like, for example, I didn't mention this, we use CallForce to answer our calls. So our missed call rate is like super low.
I do like them. I worked with them for a couple months and I wasn't super impressed.
You have to like really establish like what you're going to expect from them. No, they make mistakes all the time, but realistically, having the phone answered is so much more important, because I do the same thing. I call a place, they don't answer, I call the next place and I'm gone. So it's like, yeah, we pay a lot of money to market. So if somebody's not answering that phone, we're missing a huge opportunity. So no, they schedule things poorly. They don't collect the patient information that they should, but still, at least we got a little information from the patient.
No, but I think that's an important lesson, right? Like, so I did this myself, right? Like you start with a service, like, and it's usually one of these, like, insurance verifiers or phone services, a new patient phone service, and they screw up in the beginning. Like they make a lot of mistakes, and then you cancel them, and then you're back in the same position. When instead you can like work with these people, tell them ways to improve, and most of these companies do get better at this stuff.
Yeah.
And you kind of like see that bad couple month period through a bit before you just like cut the axe, you know?
And I mean, there still are times that there'll be a patient that called and you're like, why wasn't this person scheduled or this or that? So, I mean, like, we are not shy about sending emails to our contact there and say like, hey, we're not paying for that. And you need to train this person to say this differently, which in the end helps them. And we also understand like, this could be like a 22-year-old kid that this is their first job. Like you can't expect the world from them. But on that note, so we are looking into insurance verification. I saw an email that PBN is giving like a discount on their insurance verification. I actually have on the list to call them. And then I think the company that must do like our claims also has an insurance verification. So we've chatted with them and one other. I just haven't made a decision.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of fine with you outsourcing a lot of the front stuff, and like if these services are all working, like keeping them for a while before you bring on that second person. I think that's totally reasonable. That's, I think you're destined for another one up front, and then maybe when that comes, you start canceling some of these.
And then you guys are big into like very distinct roles at the front desk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about like what the roles are with two people at the front desk.
Sure. I mean, one way you could set it up is like the one at the very front is kind of more of a receptionist, greeter. She is the first contact to answer the phones. She can be the one verifying insurance if you're doing that in-house. And the other can be more of like sending out insurance claims, checking in on unpaid claims, things that were rejected, presenting treatment, and maybe either doing that at the checkout desk or if there's a side little office. So that can be like the bigger role, is that like one at the other front. It's kind of one way you could split them up. I don't think you need, like I've done the office manager thing with two front. I definitely don't think you need that. I think if you ever get to the point where you bring on a third, that might be your manager if you want to like offload some of the admin tasks. But with two owners, like you probably don't need to do a lot of offloading because you kind of bounce between each other.
Right. So like we have our divisions of labor split between the owners pretty well, and like we do all the insurance claims, like inputting, like when we get a check. We've had a couple of friends that have been embezzled from, so we're paranoid.
So you input the checks?
We input the checks.
Oh.
Yeah, most of it's like ETF, so we don't have to put it in. But yeah,
but you have to go on the website and get the claim and then put it in the software.
Yeah, it's not the easiest thing, but
then,
like
20 minutes a day?
Yeah, maybe 20 minutes a day. Yeah, usually you can get it done pretty quick. I've gotten a lot better at it. I never imagined that I was going to be doing that, but
it sounds like something you can train your front on.
Yes, exactly. And then, well, also with the split schedule, when we get another front desk, that front desk will be split. And so we'll kind of have two distinct teams. And so I foresee us doing some insurance stuff still on our own.
Still on your own. Yeah. I think you can train someone for that, man. Like that's easy to pass off. I know you're a bit paranoid. There's ways to set it up where there's checks and balances on a daily basis of checking, the day sheet versus what was deposited in your account the next day. And you can start being really vigilant on the back end, and then once you kind of like trust this person to do this, you can just casually check.
And I think we had enough time. We've had enough time that it's like, well, no, I don't need to pay somebody to do this when I'm sitting here twiddling my thumbs. I might as well do it. But yeah, we're rapidly approaching where that's not the case anymore.
Yeah, and like your and your partner's role is to be the visionary of this practice. Like there's a lot of directions to go with it that you need time to A, think about, and then B, implement. Like this whole what to do with marketing, or how are we going to train staff, or looking to hire someone. Like there's a lot of bigger picture items that I would rather you and your partner spend on versus like, I got some free time, let me just do some because humans like tasks that are clear and they can see and they complete them in a relatively short amount of time, which is this. Like, it's satisfying to take the money, put it in the thing, and nope, I'm done with that task. I was productive in that time I had. When in reality, it could be taking away from some more important tasks you could be thinking or acting on.
I agree.
Just one way to look at it.
No, I agree.
All right, Dane. So we'll cut off part 1 here, and then we'll see everyone back next week.
Okay. I hope you guys enjoyed part 1 with Dane. George is here, and he has some thoughts about maybe we'll start with the 5-op decision on the startup.
Well, I think I want to take a step back and talk about this guy's, Dane. I don't want to call him this guy. Dane's mindset. It was one thing that really stuck out to me was the scarcity. I mean, we talked about price of practice that was too high, price of staff, price of real estate. And it was like at every moment of this interview, when we talked about something, there was a complaint about how expensive or how pricey something is. And it's like, well, I mean, you're in the market you're in because you want to live there. Mm-hmm. So, the cost is the cost, and I think that was something that kind of stuck out to me. And I think the 5-op startup was sort of a reflection of that, and right. I get the split shifting thing. I understand it philosophically. But I still can't get behind that idea of just not building enough ops. Like it's not that much more expensive to just get a bigger space. Even if you don't build it out, you just have the space. I have a really hard time with this one.
Yeah, it was especially confusing with the 2-doctor from the startup, with only 5 ops. Like, yeah, I mean, I guess split shifting could work, but why? Like, why?
And did they say they're 7-1 or is it 7-2 and then 2-7?
Like, I believe it's 7-1 and then 12-7 or 1-7 on like alternating days. So they list all those hours, but they're only open either the morning or the evening for each day.
Yeah, because the split shifting is tough with, I think people think split shifting is, so if it was 7-1, 1-7, then it works because then there's no overlap in hours. But if there's even an hour of an overlap, then it doesn't work. It's not like right now they're not really split shifting because they're not there on the same days. But if there's a day when he's there in the morning and his partner's there in the afternoon, then that has to be like a 7-1, 1-7 type situation. And even then, like it's hard to finish on time and start on time. We've been doing it, and there's definitely some scheduling, stuff that comes up for you.
Yeah, I mean, it only seemed to make sense if, like he mentioned in the interview, I don't know if this is this part of the next part, but when they have like a bigger case and like they can just, one doctor can work out of that one op for several hours and then they can be there at the same time. But that's like the only way it even remotely makes sense.
Yeah, I have a really hard time with, because startups, one of the biggest benefit of a startup is that, yes, you are taking it on the chin. You're going to take 18 months to open. You're going to take a lot longer. And I notice every startup person we've talked to has done some level of front desk function themselves. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, right, you and I have both bought practices. Have we ever inputted an insurance payment?
No. I mean, inputting an insurance payment is inexcusable. Like,
I've never, ever done that in my life.
No.
And I've never submitted a claim. I mean, I feel like that's more typical for someone who buys a practice. They come and walk into something that's working. And these startup docs know how to do it all. And so you invest all that time, effort, and energy, and you probably, are 2 years behind if you had bought a practice. So the hope is that you can then quickly grow into a group. And I get his split shifting is allowing him to have functionally 10 ops is kind of what he was saying. But man, if I'm taking that kind of investment of time and effort and hassle to get new patient flow in a good location, I am building a bigger office. I just can't get behind that.
Well, here's the issue that is happening with a couple of my pre-owners in our group coaching is that they're looking at spaces, and the bigger ones, say 2,500 or plus square feet, are just really expensive, and they're hesitant to commit to $8-10 grand a month in rent. So that's where like the scarcity is coming in that you're talking about, right? Like they're looking at that number and they're like, well, I don't have any patients and this seems huge, when they're missing the opportunity of, oh, now you have a bigger space, you can have a much bigger office, and now you have the benefit of doing this startup.
So how much grand a month did you say a space like that would be?
I mean, anywhere from 10 to 15K, 8K, kind of in that range. in like a more competitive market, at least than the two that are looking.
And I think the thing I would say is, obviously this is the free rent negotiation period of your lease too, if you can negotiate a lease like that. But how long are you going to be in that space? You just signed a 10-year lease. Are you saying that I'm betting that my practice will not get over 1.5 million in collections in 10 years? Then why are we doing a startup?
I don't have an answer for you.
You can just buy a practice at that point, right? Like,
I know.
I just like, you're doing a startup because you think it's going to be really big, and yeah, I mean, Matt, right? You and I have both had that feeling of betting on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's scary.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's a normal feeling. If you're taking an adequate amount of risk, in my mind, then you should feel scared. You should feel scared by your rent. You should feel that little bit of pressure to grow into your facility. I would much rather do that than the alternative of, opening up thank goodness this wasn't 4 ops or 3, but 5 is, I mean,
it is 5 or 2 doctors too, though. And like, I don't know. I feel like with a startup, you want to do this build out once. Like,
yes,
you don't want to move. Like, get it sustainable for the long term.
Right. And, last night in the webinar, I was talking about it. Like, I have 8 ops right now, and I'm building an office, and I have been adamant. The first floor plan I saw was 14 ops. And I was like, no way. We are getting more. And I was really mad I couldn't fit 20 in there. We have 19. Everyone's like, wow, you're going to a 19 op office? That's a little insane. And it's like, that same thing that they're saying, I'm feeling the same thing, but at the same time, I only want to do this once. I don't want to keep moving my practice. And, if you're going to do this, do it in a way that's going to sustain you for the next 10 years. You signed a 10-year lease. I just can't imagine 5 years from now, Dane and his partner are not wishing they had more operatories. I can't see that happening.
Yeah, it seems pretty likely that will come across, especially with the kind of inroads they've already made in getting new patients and with their marketing working. What else you got for Dane's part one?
So I think they had there was a conversation about split shifting the team, and just one thing that came to mind is he kind of talked about it like they have the 7-to-1, the 1-to-7. He's like, we'll have to have 2 different teams, and first of all, I found it was funny because he was like, well, we don't want to do that because people are expensive here. I was like, okay, well, but anyway, on the second point of, I don't like the idea of like an A, B, A team, B team type thing. I kind of like the idea of more of a blended team. So you have every team member work with every team member, and you just kind of you finagle the schedule so that they're all there at different times and days. But I typically don't like you have like my crew, her crew, type thing. That doesn't feel great for culture. So I think that was one thing I had noticed that stuck out to me. The last thing really, and by the way, I was not nice to Dane on his mindset with, certain things. His marketing mindset, I loved. His willingness to just invest in marketing, for a startup, such a great, healthy mindset. I wish more dentists had that mindset with marketing. So I love that about him.
It was interesting. He kind of came to the interview looking for like is my marketing doing well? Am I putting it in the right spots? So I was like, yeah, you're getting 60, 70 new patients a month. Whatever you're doing is working.
And did he say how much he was spending?
Yeah, I think it was around maybe 2,000 to 2,500 a month. Nothing crazy. Like,
wow, that's tiny.
Yeah, pay-per-click, SEO. Had done mailers when he opened, but wasn't doing them currently. Yeah, nothing
Solid.
crazy at all.
Wow, That's impressive. Yeah. No, that's fine. And his marketing mindset. I mean, I guess his idea of spending a lot of money, I thought it was much more than that. But anyway, the only thing I thought to talk about was outsource services. I think that came up, and I think we've never really talked about that before. And I loved the conversation that you had around, managing them and reporting feedback, and not like just like cutting them back. They don't work, and just getting all mad because that's what so many people do. So like
so many people. Oh my God,
like, blank service sucks. Like they didn't know exactly. They didn't read my office's mind. And it's like, we don't sell outsource services, but we feel like they get such an unfair like cut of raw deal from dentists.
Well, you helped me with that because like I got call force years ago and had that same experience where they constantly screwed up, and then I cut them, but then I remember talking to you about your insurance verification services, which were outsourced out of the country, and how much like back and forth it took for you to really dial that in, and how patient you were with it, and I kind of saw that other way. I'm like, well, why am I not using that same mindset with the services I use? and it's paid off.
Well, it's funny because like if you think about it, right, our staff makes mistakes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like think of a time where your front desk scheduled an appointment incorrectly.
Daily.
Yeah, did we fire them? Did they come running to you and say, I scheduled your crown inappropriately?
Mm-hmm.
No. But the second that your front office notices a mistake from the outsourced service, they're running straight to you and they're reporting it. As if like, well, report your own mistakes like that. And then I'll fire you just as fast, same way you want me to fire them. It's like, it's a double standard that our staff have with outsourced services. And so I always tell my staff, anytime somebody complains about an outsourced service, I say, report back to them, give them the opportunity to hear the feedback. And so for every outsourced service we have two. We have inpatient phone calls, new patient phone calls, and we have insurance verification. And we have two different team members that are in charge of each outsourced service. So like one for new patient phone calls, one for insurance verification. And they report back to them. And that's the whole point. And now when you get them dialed in, they love them. And, then you're like, if you keep complaining, I'll cut them. Like, oh, okay. Like, I'll work with it. I'll work it out. Like, okay, cool. Like, be quiet about it.
What do you think of that motto of like, maybe someone who wants to hold on, like say you're in a high cost of living area and you want to hold on to just having the one front for a little while and like outsourcing insurance billing, new patient phone calls, maybe calls that aren't answered, e-assist kind of things. What do you think about like just delaying that with outsourcing before like, okay, you really need one? Do you feel like it's a viable strategy?
Yeah. And so actually I think I'm glad you guys talked claim submission. To me, and maybe I'm just weird in this area, I cannot understand why I would outsource claim submission.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that feels like the easiest thing to do. And they charge like at a startup volume, they charge like 4%.
Oh,
so
wow.
You're paying 4% of your insurance collections to outsource this thing that it doesn't take that much time and it's not that hard of a process to manage. So, I mean, for me, the biggest benefit of a second front office is scheduling overdue recare. Mm-hmm. And a startup, you don't have overdue recare yet. You don't have this pool of people that have gone overdue. Mm-hmm. So in his case, it might actually make sense to have new patient phones being taken care of and then have your verification outsourced. Mm-hmm. Those are the two bears. And then you do claim submission in-house and you can grow a little bit more, become more mature. And then once you have an overdue recare pool, I would say the benefits of the second front desk outweigh the costs because then you're calling overdue recare. For an acquisition, it always makes sense because the overdue recare is always there when you buy a practice.
Now, that doesn't make any sense. Why would they charge a percentage of the amount on the claim versus a per claim fee? It's the same amount of legwork for any claim, yet they're going to do a percentage of the dollar amount on the claim?
I think the idea is that they're financially incentivized to collect your overdue stuff. I think that's the idea that dentists like about it. They're like, oh, they only get paid when I get paid.
Yeah, but if they're taking 4% of a $2,500 claim, like that's not nothing.
Yeah, I mean, most insurance claims are not $2,500 because you got the, maxes. But yeah, I see what you mean.
I know.
It ends up being about 2% of collections, right? Because typically in insurance practice, half of your collections come from insurance. Or in my practice, we're about half. Maybe some are 60%, 70%. But it ends up being a sizable chunk of your overhead for something that's like it's automated. You can e-bill, and then I think the part where dentists fall into the trap is they don't follow up with their unpaid claims. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where these companies really earn their income with these dentists is like, okay, we'll follow up with unpaid claims and we'll argue them and stuff. But if you do that on your own, then there's really no reason to sign up with one of those companies. Yeah, I personally don't see it.
Could you real quick get into your system of following up on unpaid claims?
Sure. Yeah. So we have anytime a claim has gone over 30 days. So we run once a month. We have an insurance coordinator who runs once a month a aging report on our insurance claims, and anything that has aged over 30 days, we call that insurance company. And then we see why the claim has not been paid. We write down that reason. Then we go ahead and repair that, resend the claim. And then every 30 days that a claim has not gotten paid, we are calling again.
So you have like an Excel spreadsheet of these claims, or how do you log them?
So it's I believe in the practice management software, you can create notes on a claim. So when you pull a report, wow, this is like the most minutia I think I've ever got into.
Granular, yeah.
Yeah. So when you pull an aging report on an insurance aging report, the specific claims each claim, you can write notes. You can click on that claim and write notes in the practice management software.
Mhm.
And so that's where we document the status of the claim or what needs to be repaired. And so the way the workflow would go is like you pull up the claim and it's like, okay, missing PA. And then you're like, okay, we call the insurance company, and then they say, okay, you're missing a PA. So we write in the notes, missing PA, call the insurance company, added PA, reset claim. Then we resend the claim. If it gets paid, great. If not, then we'll follow up again.
Now, is that insurance coordinator like the sole person responsible for this, or is someone checking it, like the manager checking in on her with this, or it's just on her plate?
So if we pull an insurance aging report, and there's a lot of insurance aging over 30 days, and we know she's not doing her job. So that's typically the way we do that. And yeah, my office manager, that was her old job before we got the insurance coordinator. She was the one doing that. And so that's a process that she keeps a pretty close eye on.
Good. I like getting in detail sometimes.
Yeah, it's funny. I have no idea how to do any of those things. I just know how they are done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how to do them myself.
Good. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. We'll see you next week for part 2 of Dane's interview.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Practice Underwater. We'll see you guys next week.
If you're interested in one-on-one coaching with either Dr. George Hariri or Dr. Matt Garino, our contact emails are in the show notes.
And if you're interested in being on Practice Underwater as a guest, where we could look at your practice anonymously, you can go ahead and contact the email in the show notes and follow those directions to get on the show. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next week on Practice Underwater.